2023. We'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order. I'll wait 1 second. We're almost live up there. Perfect. All right, we do have a quorum this morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. Would anybody like to make a motion to accept the staff report into record, or is there anything that needs to be amended?
I'll make a motion. We accept staff report in the record.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the December 14th meeting that we had? Is there any corrections or changes that need to be made? Okay, hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion. We accept the minutes as presented for last month's meeting.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Perfect. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right. Eric, I assume since you're up here today, you're going to be doing all of our stuff. So just a review of everything that happened at the last one at the county commissioners meeting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the zone map amendment from Casey Bruder was approved, and so was the variance for Lot 2. And as you saw through the emails to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I did let everyone know that they were appealing the decision of not that, but the preliminary plat, which is only heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission at the Board of County Commissioners. I just want to thank you all for being there. Appreciate that. It was affirmed your decision. So when we have an appeal that goes before anytime there's a preliminary plat, they can appeal, and the appellant board is the Board of County Commissioners in that case. And so they did affirm your decision. So they will move on to final plat with that stipulation of having to remove that access. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, everybody that was able to attend and be there on Zoom. I appreciate that. All right. Well, we have one hearing today. Public hearing number 1 is Matt Jackman Construction for a variance. So I will turn it over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll wait for that to come up. Okay, great. So the property owner is Lynn Jackman, applicant is Matthew Jackman. And it's a 110 acre tract within the southwest quarter, section 28, 20 north, range 105 west. Zoning is R2. It's within the fire district 1, and then that is within, as far as infrastructure goes, 10-mile water and sewer. So here is the location of the parcel and the location of where the variance is being sought. And you can see to the west, we have some CRS zoning, we have some commercial zoning, and then this entire parcel is R2. And then to the north of that is rural residential. And R2SF, just take note that that R2SF parcel is Bureau of Land Management and is vacant. And then kind of the properties, pretty much the surrounding properties in that are residential in nature and zoned R2SF. So the applicant's requesting a variance in accordance with section 4F. And the current zoning is R2 and it's undeveloped. What we have out there was we have existing stockpiles of concrete out there that we were made aware of through a complaint this summer. And it was due to trucks. It was actually came into the engineering department, and it was trucks bringing in loads of concrete. And so there was dust created by the haul trucks and then the stockpiles of concrete that are out there. So we went out, had Mr. Zimmerman investigate. There is a little bit more than just concrete out there. There is rebar attached to the concrete. And then there's also some brick and wood mixed in there also. And you can see that in the photos we're going to get to. So the applicant, Mr. Matt Jackman, we contacted him and told him there are some options that he could pursue. One of them, is to allow stockpiles of concrete, you'd have to be in an I2 zone district or an I1 under conditional use. And the issue there is changing for just that purpose. From the staff standpoint, I would not support a heavy industrial zone change that's mostly surrounded by, well, half of it's surrounded by residential in that area. And then we have commercial zoning, which we do have commercial next to light industrial, but that type of use for just what the situation is, we just didn't have them pursue that, although that could have been something that had been pursued. So what we suggested to the applicant is, because it's under violation right now, is to pursue a variance to allow that. And so that's why we're here today, Madam Chair. So the applicant did provide a like a rough sketch plat of the proposed subdivision. We've met with the Jackmans in the past. It's been quite a while since we met with them, but this is kind of what they're proposing. Didn't have discussions in the past about a potential residential subdivision in the area. So that's kind of what they provided there. Just take note that this land use department has not received a formal application of sketch plat or subdivision application. And you can see there is a aerial photography. Here are some pictures just of the posting and the entrance that's coming off Yellowstone Road and the posting as required. And then these pictures were obviously taken back in the summer/fall. And you can see it's quite a large area. I was actually shocked when I went out there how large of an area it was, how much stockpiling was out there. But this shows you how much stuff is stored out there. It's not high necessarily, but it is pretty wide. A large amount. And you can see on that picture down to the bottom left there that there's some mixtures of rebar and some wood in there. So here's the thing with variances. We have the 3 criteria. And so what it states in the book is that you have to take these in consideration. So when you're making your decision. And the first one is that there's special circumstances in your findings, which are peculiar to the land or building for which the variance is sought and do not generally apply to land or building in the neighborhood, and has not resulted from an act of the applicant subsequent to the adoption of the resolution. So current zoning is R2, and your typical lot size is around 2 acres. We have 1 acre lots of R2. So I would say from a peculiarity standpoint that it is peculiar to other R2 because of the size. It's 110 acres of undeveloped. So that would make it peculiar to other R2 parcels or lots in the Sweetwater County. But what we come down to is one issue that's here that doesn't put it in compliance compared to other variance applications, is that key thing in there have not resulted from any act of the applicant, which he has acted. He has gone out there and put that concrete without a permit. So that we are hearing that as a result of the applicant. So staff finds that it does not meet this section. And then the next one is criteria is for reasons fully set forth in the commission's and board's findings, the circumstances or conditions are such that strict application of the provisions of the zoning resolution would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use. The granting of the adjustment is necessary or the reasonable use thereof, and the adjustment is granted as the minimum adjustment that will be accomplished. So, I mean, obviously reasonable use of the land would be residential. As far as granting the minimum adjustment, the material is out there. The question, if the board does decide to approve this variance, one, we suggest that there's a time frame on there because it is residential in nature and zoned accordingly, that we, as far as the minimum adjustment, we don't want additional material brought out there. So there should be something as far as a condition that states that. The granting of the variance is in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the zoning resolution. So one of the purposes of the resolution is to guide and regulate the utilization of land for its most appropriate use and ensure orderly growth, development, redevelopment in the county. Again, the appropriate use is residential, according to the zoning designations. The complaints originally received by the department were in the summer and they were associated with the hauling in. So we have not received additional complaints since late summer, fall, because that's when it occurred. That's when it was brought out there. And at the date of this report, staff has not received any negative comments concerning the request. So again, I've already stated that a time limit, if the variance is approved, there are several different options today of decision that you can make in regards to this application. Mr. De Leon and I have talked about it, and John, feel free to jump in if I miss something here, but one is so as it's stated in the book, you can approve with conditions or you can deny the request. And again, this is a recommendation that goes before the Board of County Commissioners. So this is not the last step. Another option really is to table. If there's additional information that you want in regards to this, or you want the applicant to provide additional information, that's also an option too. Keep in mind, tabling, I believe John can only table till the next meeting. Another option would be to, we could have it tabled at the Board of County Commissioners too. But ultimately, those are the options that are out here as far as the planning and zoning. Just keep in mind, this is a recommendation as we move forward. And the applicant is here. I have noticed too that we have an adjacent property owner also here, Mr. Rammel. So that's all I have, Madam Chair, at this time. Oh, excuse me, hold on. Public agency and comments, Rocky Mountain Power had no issues. Colorado State Gas, they had no concerns. And as you can see, as far as a public works director, there are a lot of concerns of the access because there is a property that's crossing to get to this one that we haven't confirmed as far as access easements and such. I know this, they've owned this parcel for a long time and they've been accessing across Mr. Self's property, but that's in question. But those are conditions that would be appropriate to attach if we were. As far as and I'll have the applicant actually describe what it is his plans are rather than me paraphrasing him. So that's all I have right now at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. And Mr. Jackman, would you like to come up and introduce yourself and add anything to Eric's presentation?
Thank you, Eric. Thank you guys for being here. I feel with your sentence of being on planning and zoning. I did 10 years in Rock Springs, so I know what kind of job it can be. Matt Jackman, representing Lynn Jackman for Jackman Construction. Getting ready, hopefully, to do a subdivision out there. We've been stockpiling concrete, honestly, for a long time and stockpiling materials. About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we crushed a bunch and hauled it off. That's why it's always kind of what we've been using it for over the years. I think we've been storing, like when you mentioned the brick and stuff, most of that's from the first Washington school that we tore down in 1970. Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's been material out there a long time that we've been storing. So I didn't even know we were in violation. Didn't know it was even R2. We always thought it was agricultural. So long-term, the materials out there to do the subdivision, we would crush the concrete. It would get blended with sand most likely and be used as a sub-base course for roads. We figure we need 8,000 odd tons to do the subdivision. Right now we've got 4,000 tons, but at $40 a ton to get it trucked in and hauled off, if you can save $40, that's makes a subdivision from not viable to viable to happening out there. Some of the delays, we've been working on that for about a year and a half. Some of the delays, John Imoni purchased a property directly south of ours, connecting to Kelly Road, which is the next road down. But we were trying to get him to decide what he wants to do, where he wants to build his house, where that location. He does want to subdivide his property. Does he want 20 lots or does he want 4 lots directly north? And there's some challenges there. And then with Mr. Self, we know we have a utility easement through Mr. Self's property on the backside, which I brought a copy of. We also have a road easement through Mr. Pitt's property, which Mr. Self is those two lots that were next to ours. Mr. Pitt's is directly below it. On one side is the road easement, the other side is the utility easement. We've just always used the 2-track. That 2-track's been there since the 70s, most likely, if not longer. And that's where kind of staff's questions are. I do have copies of both easements. Mr. Self and I had discussed moving the utility easement from the backside of those two properties to, is it Braxton Circle? That goes through the middle, which would clean it up a lot. It makes it easier for wideout because you're only allowed so many accesses to a wideout highway within so many feet. If he gave us the easement through the middle of the Braxton Circle to go straight across for both road and utilities. So another kind of piece of the puzzle to try and make everything go together from a landlocked subdivision. Worst case scenario, one of the houses to the north of us is for sale off Jackman Ranch Road. And we would buy it and tear it down and access it that way. Any
I was
questions?
just gonna say, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Jackman while he's up here?
I have a question for you, Mr. Jackman. You said you have some of the material there from 1970.
There's stuff that's been there a long time.
As I well know, I mean, I want to make sure everybody here is informed. You're showing some of those brick you're saying from the Washington School from the 1970s, 1980s.
Yeah.
And it's still sitting there, this is 40 years, 50 years later, it's still sitting there. So
Mhm.
That's my main concern. I mean, we have a complaint and you have some property owners that are around there already. The staff had no comments yet, but this hasn't went in front of, I don't know how well it's been advertised, but if you've had stuff since 1970s, when you gonna, and you said you've already crushed, how come you haven't crushed that then too?
The older bricks were, trying to think of the best way to put it. They wouldn't mix, right? And it screwed up the gradations. We tried to crush it and it screwed up the gradations. I mean, ideally, we just have to haul it off, but if we're already in trouble for truck traffic.
Well,
And when we do the subdivision, it would get hauled off to clean up the lots.
so if there's like, Eric was saying, there was some wood in there, some brick. I mean, this is basically, it's just been dumped and then you're going to sift through it out there is what you're proposing.
Not really.
But
That's
you're
the
what I'm
kind of
saying
in
is you
one
still have
area.
Garbage out there
Mhm.
from 1970s that you haven't done anything with. Now you're going to do something with it, is what you're saying.
That's the goal. And I mean, we've had asphalt millings and stuff that we've used and crushed and mixed in and everything out there too. But the brick, that's why it's kind of in one area, is because we're like, oh, we can't use that. And we've pushed it off to the side and we've just never hauled it off. So.
Well, I've just looked at some of the pictures. I haven't been out there, Matt, so
Mhm.
I really don't know. I just can go off of what the pictures. It doesn't look like the brick and the rebar. I mean, I've crushed it, as you well know. I've crushed the concrete and everything, and you do have you'll generate a lot of useless material, rebar,
Mhm.
some of the brick, which you can't use, wood,
Mhm.
which you can't use, any organics, basically.
Yep.
But I just want everybody to know that there is quite still of a process. And if you've dumped everything there, and the only thing I'm getting at, if it's been there since 1970, what's to say it won't be there in 2060?
No,
You see what I'm saying?
No, I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
I'm just being straight. We've been
Yeah.
using the property a long time. We didn't even know it was zoned residential. We always thought it was zoned agricultural. I don't know when it got switched.
97, is that?
90
correct?
and it was when the county did the batch switch or.
Mhm.
So when we did adopted a zoning map for the entire area north of Rock Springs, because there was a lot of, you're right, it was all zoned mostly agriculture up in that area.
So I can't, when the state legalizes marijuana, I can't grow marijuana now.
Oh my
out there.
gosh. So it was back in and I don't know as far as advertising, and I wasn't here in 97, so I don't know, Matt, but yeah, I mean, it's very likely that, it was zoned agriculture and it was turned to R2. I don't know why R2 and not R2SF, but maybe you guys wanted to propose Lynn wanted a mixed residential subdivision at one time. I don't know.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. It's been on the table more than once.
Oh,
over the
yes, it
years.
has. It has. Yeah. Cause I've seen, you go back in the file, there's a number of like other proposals of a
Yeah,
subdivision and
when the
stuff.
first easement was granted in 2006, there was a plat and everything that was
Yes.
proposed and drafted up, and then
Yeah,
I don't remember what came up that it just didn't
Yeah.
happen. And right now it's tough with interest rates hitting that 7 and 8%. People aren't buying 2-acre lots to build $400,000 houses right now, and plus it makes bank financing and stuff a challenge. So I think we're probably 2 years out from executing. By the time, once you do the final plat, before you can begin construction, it's 7 months usually anyway. By the time engineering drawings and everything gets through for JFC or Dan Kennedy. So I can't see us being started out there for 2 years. And at that point, then you'd have a construction permit and
Correct.
yeah, it wouldn't be the variance anymore.
How old is with the preliminary plat sketches that we have, how old are those? I mean, we try to find dates on that and weren't able, I mean,
I can pull up my
quite a while.
email from Dan Kennedy.
I think I could read this. I think it's 19 or 2022, Angela.
Was it? And I
That's
missed
what
it and I
kinda
couldn't
looks
see
like to
it.
me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it- okay, I
We were working
couldn't
on
see
it this spring.
it was hard to see, but
I'm like, I couldn't see it. so-
Yeah.
It was March of 2022, if I
Okay,
could read
okay.
that right.
Oh, it is
Yep,
right.
3/1/2022 is when he emailed it to me.
And then where did all of this come from that it was dumped there?
It's come from a variety of projects. Over the summer, it was kind of when we destroyed Lincoln Elementary, the
Okay,
foundation, and there's probably 1,100 tons there. I bet we hauled off 200 from Lincoln. I mean, any sidewalk you tear out, it's just, I said, we've been doing it keeping it there for a long time.
So you don't have any of the building material, just concrete from the Lincoln School?
Yeah,
You
just the
don't-
foundation.
We're not worried about anything for like asbestos
thank you.
or anything.
Yeah.
Because you did. I know a little bit.
Mm.
I didn't bid the project, but I do know a little bit about it. There was asbestos abatement need to be done with that.
Yep.
So you're just talking about the foundations, the walls, the
Yep.
concrete, the sidewalks.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was and there was some concrete pavement outside and everything, but the 100% abated, it was signed off on by the mountain climber guy out of Salt Lake. I should know his name and I don't, but his company signed off, said the building 100% clean, abated. We had to do that before we could begin demolition. Yeah, but none of all that brick. We've realized that brick does not make good crushable material to use. So we hauled off all the brick to the landfill and everything there. It was just the concrete that we know is crushable. So
So
You
no,
spoke about crushing a little bit. Have you crushed out there before, and is your intent to crush it there?
yes, our intent would be to crush it there when we begin construction on the subdivision and the roads, dust control standard out there. We'd probably have to. Ideally, we would run the water line down Kelly Road through Imoni's property and set up the fire hydrants and begin and use that for our water to prevent dust control.
So how did you do it when you did it before?
15 years ago, I honestly don't know. I didn't work for my dad then, or 12 years ago when he did it. I just know that he did it. And yeah, crushing concrete doesn't generate near as much dust as the equipment driving around on the sand and the sagebrush does.
it still does.
There's still lots
has
of dust.
a bit of
Yeah.
dust, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't just spray your machines. Kind of has to be wet when it goes in. And yeah, we've done other crushing operations, just not out there. Yeah.
So I know that there's another landowner. Have you talked to any landowners before you guys did any of this? Have you had any feedback from any of the landowners previous to this, Matt, or over the years? Because if you've had piles out there since the 70s, have you ever got any complaints? I mean, county does not going to get them all. You guys.
Yeah, one of the homeowners to the north, and they bought when my grandpa Herb died and they sold the ranch to the kids. One of the kids sold their 10 acres and built his house. And one of those did complain to us, and we did push it away. And I think we even hauled a little bit off. I'm trying to think, they have like a drainage ditch that comes off their property that kind of just goes onto ours into the general area. And it was interfering with their drainage ditch. So we cleaned that up, but that was a few years ago. Jace talked to somebody else who's my other little brother about, hey, what's the stuff that's been here forever, as long as we've owned the property? And it's like you said, it's been there since 1970. You don't have a lot of assurances that it's not going to be there in 2070, but I understand exactly what you're saying. And it wouldn't be tough to haul it off if that's going to be a
Well,
Yeah.
what I guess I have a problem with, Matt, and I'm sure you can attest to this is it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. I mean, you brought this stuff in and I'm more concerned now about your neighbors, what they think. Because they had no say into it. You didn't get the variance before the project started, of course,
Mhm.
and this stuff has been there since 1970. So, it does, for me, it'll mean a lot to what your neighbors state, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I wouldn't blame them either. I guess to me, it's our property. It's been our property. I didn't know there was going to be a zoning issue for as long as we've been doing stuff there. That was just, yeah.
Okay, here,
Go for it, Kelly.
simple questions. So it's been there since the 1970s and you're gonna use this for road base is what your plans are.
Yeah, it'll be with a layer beneath the road base.
There, but
And-
we're
and-
going
and
to
Kelly,
grant
just
you
to-
an easement for something that is that's in violation. If something falls through and you don't do this development, what are your plans with those piles?
I don't have a good answer for you. And I don't blame you for the
No.
question. I don't have a good
I
answer
mean,
for you though. Yeah.
We do this variance and that's to allow you to go through with this development you have planned.
Yeah.
But stuff falls through, the economy goes to crap, these piles are still there.
Mm.
And they're still in violation. I mean, we don't want to make it an endless thing. We'd want a resolution at some point
Mhm.
that it's done.
One of the big drives to getting this done recently is Jace went to Farrier School and got his license. And wants to build a big shop in a corral, and his current property at 358 Washington just isn't big enough at 1 acre. And he wants 6 acres to put in a corral and all that other stuff. So honestly, Jace is driving the subdivision out there more than any of us are. For as a company, it's break even. Honestly, we'd probably lose a little bit by the time it's fully developed and everything over the long term. But he really wants his house and stuff out there, part of the family, and that's something we try and make happen.
Yeah, because that's what I see is at some point in time, the piles either need to go away or
Mhm.
be used.
Yep.
And I mean, there needs to be a,
Yeah, my little brother wants a house out there. That's your best assurance is that one of the family members wants a house out there that looks good that he can open up and.
what kind of
property
timeline are you guys have vision for getting to
That's where I said 2 years.
2 years?
2 years would be a feasible option. Yeah, I don't see it happening this summer. By the time final plats and everything are approved, we're 7 months. That puts us to middle of August. We could start, I guess, middle of August. But 2 years, the following spring would be ideal. So
As far as access, though, at this point, you guys have been using the utility access, or the utility easement, sorry, as your access. There is no like written or recorded access through these other homeowners' properties to get to yours. You're just using the utility easement. Is that correct?
there's a utility easement and a road easement next door on adjacent properties. We've always used the 2-track because that's just where it is rather than making a new road 30 feet south of it.
Okay.
There is a road easement through Pitt's property. And I've got a copy of it if
Okay.
you
I
guys
didn't know.
really want it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Does anybody have any further questions? If not, we'll open it up. Thank you very much. We might
Yeah.
have you back up here.
All right.
but,
Thank you, guys.
At this point, we'll open it up to public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that is for the variance, if you would like to come up. Or just in general, yeah, or if there's anybody against the variance, now is your time. You want to come up and state your name for everybody?
Yes, thank you, Rex Rammel. I don't know if you can see, could you put up my property down
You
here?
bet. Go ahead, Jennifer, if you want to.
I forget what
Right,
the Screen back
Could
there.
you describe where that's at so I can?
Sure. So you're right here, Rex,
Yeah,
right there, where all those buildings are right
we
there. the
bought,
commercial.
we bought this property in 2017, so it'll be 6 years in March. And when, there was no concrete out there, really that I remember, maybe a few bricks. But there was a lot of mounds of dirt that had been there for a long time. And I mean, 10, 20 acres worth of dirt that they'd been stockpiling. I don't know where I got the information, but it was my understanding that they were going to do a subdivision. Occasionally we raise animals on our place, and occasionally one of them will get out. So we have to go get them in. So I've been back through their property. Those dirt piles have just been sitting there for all these years. There's a kind of a pond that's dug out. There is some sewer pipe that we can see from our fence. I assumed that they were going to do something with it, but like I say, that's all been sitting there for 6 years. The concrete, I saw it this summer. That was the first time I'd seen the concrete out there. So it's mostly dirt piles, but I feel like if, Matt and his family seem to be good people. If they want to do a subdivision, they need to get it done. I mean, you can't keep telling people that you're going to do it when your intention is just to use it for a junkyard. And I feel, I don't want to offend Matt, but that's kind of what I feel like has happened out there. Is that they've just postponed and postponed and postponed. They keep telling people that they're going to do a subdivision when they're really not. It's just to pile up stuff. And of course, you know that property owners next to it, we could sell, everybody, there's a lot of residential people out there. And even though there hasn't been a lot of opposition to this, I would imagine nobody's real excited about having concrete piles out there for the next 20 years. If Matt wanted to do a subdivision, I'm totally fine with it. It's already zoned that way, but he should be given a timeline that he has to start. He has to get the permits. He has to break ground. He has to clean up the concrete piles. I would like to see the dirt piles cleaned up. Like I said, I've seen them for 6 years, and I'll bet you they've been there for 20. I don't know how long they've been there, but they're hard. If he would improve his property, then I don't think anybody would have a problem with it. But I'm not sure that that's their pure intent. And so for that reason, as it stands, I would oppose this variance unless there are conditions on it that he goes ahead and does what he says he's going to do. And 2 years is, I don't know, he's going to do this. He probably ought to start filing for permits immediately, get it done. He's got easement problems. He's got all kinds of problems with the property. Who knows if he can even get his easement down through there? That's my biggest thought when I learned about the situation. I know you can't use a utility easement to put a road down through there. And buying somebody else's property and making a road through it. I mean, who knows if they'd even sell? But regardless of of what happens today, I think that they should clean the place up. If they're going to do what he says, fine, get it done and do it timely. If you're not going to do it, clean the place up. Even the dirt piles have been there for so many years that they should be at least leveled. I thought that's what they were going to do. I thought they're going to take a bulldozer out there and at least level the dirt and make it look nice. But it's just a big junk pile is all it is. And I wish him the best. Like I said, the Jackmans are good people, but if they're gonna do what they say they're gonna do, make them do it. Otherwise, clean the place up.
Thank you, Mr. Remmel, for your comments. Has there been anybody else that would like to comment on the variance in the audience? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public comment portion and we'll open it back up for the board. Does the board have any questions for Eric or John? I guess.
So
Go ahead.
I guess if we was to approve a variance with a year timeline to have, is this possible to have them crush material, clean up the site within a year? This has nothing to do with the subdivision, because I know on a cost standpoint, I know what it cost to remove that stuff and find a place, but this is just a thought that I was thinking, have them crush the material, give them a year to do it. And if, once the material is crushed, have them another, and clean up the site, and then another year to either do the subdivision, use the material, or have that material removed so there's no piles.
John, how is that enforceable, or what is the
Yeah.
avenue that way? I guess is my question. Who
Or do we
enforces
just
that?
can't or deny the variance?
So you do have options in terms of being able to put on timeframes. My concern when you talk about 2 years. So I would
Well, this year, 2023, to have the material crushed. So all that stuff is in a pile. And then give him a year to get all the subdivision and everything ready, and that he can use that material on his subdivision, because concrete base makes some of the best base. I understand that aspect of it. But then if the subdivision's a no-go for Mr. Randall's point of view, if it's a no-go, then after that second year, that material, the end of 2024, that material has to be moved off the site with it cleaned up. Is what I'm proposing.
you do have the ability to put on conditions as you deem fit. The considerations that the 3 considerations that you're looking at, right? Are that the special circumstances are not due to the applicant, which as staff identified, they are. Okay, that's one of your 3 considerations. The second consideration is that the adjustment that you're making, the variance that you're making is the minimum adjustment that you can use. So what that's saying is that you don't want to vary more than you need to. In other words, use timeframes that aren't going beyond, some of the concerns in terms of 20 years. You want it to be the minimum amount.
Yep.
And so you can place timeframes. One thing you may ask, and I don't think the applicant was clear on, is what he's clear on. He identified when he wants to work on the subdivision. The applicant did not make any identification or didn't put a focus on when the debris, the concrete.
But we can, correct? That's
You
that,
can.
yeah, that's why I said
You absolutely
2024.
can. Yes.
Yeah.
You absolutely can do that. And in terms of the enforcement, Madam Chair, the enforcement is that, and that's why you might consider lower timeframes. The enforcement process would be through finding that there's violation. Okay, that process. And so if you put timeframes on there, then Jim, an enforcement officer, can go out there and identify if any timeframes or conditions that you put on there are not being met with, then he can issue notice to the applicant, identify that has 30 days to voluntarily comply. Okay, so however you identify it, if he's not in compliance with those conditions, then it can be enforced through the zoning process, violation process. First step is to try to seek voluntary compliance. Second step is there is some room in there where the department can allow for an extension of that voluntary period of up to 90 days. So there's some room in there for the department to work with that. And you're talking about 120 days approximately. Now, there's also, and we talked about this a little bit this morning, there's also some some discretion for the department to allow for timeframes based on circumstances that are not due to the applicant's actions, such as some of the snow we were talking about. That so there's 120-day sort of a more hard and fast timeframes, and then there's a other circumstances, potential timeframe for extension that the department can work with. And then it moves on from there. After those voluntary periods, it moves on to a mandatory period of 30 days. And then from there, it could be turned over to the county attorney's office. And then from there, that's when things can get more difficult, because that could lead to it would potentially go to district court, which includes and the process is in place and in place on other properties. It could lead to the property, somebody else cleaning up the property. And then that ultimately being the responsibility of the applicant / owner of the land. And there could become a sale on that land, which would be responsible for that cleanup. So it's an extent, there's a lot to it in that whole enforcement process. But again, the clarity on those conditions is vital in order for the department to be able to specific. So when you're talking about Commissioner, some of those timeframes, the shorter ones do have an advantage, right? So if you were to provide a time frame that was a shorter time frame, that could be acted upon and end. The permit could end sooner. So you could have the permit potentially end 6 months from now and see what the status quo is at that time frame, rather than, and again, you're looking for the minimum, right?
Yeah.
The minimum adjustment that can be made. And so, again, obviously you taking into consideration those three criteria is your responsibility. And then from there, looking at what are the minimum, if you did determine, and again, you can weigh those three criteria as you deem appropriate, and as you identified that you did put some weight to the effect on other properties. And so you can weigh those. Most importantly, you have to consider all three. And then from there, you can weigh them as you deem appropriate. So again, in terms of the timeframes and enforcement, there could certainly be a follow-up application for a variance permit 6 months from now, again, using hypothetical numbers, but again, adding to the 4 options that Eric identified, which are approval with conditions, denial, and number 4 is the table.
I guess my question, would be to maybe Mr. Legursky to see what the county or Eric, what the county's suggestion is if we was to allow them to crush it, would they be up for that, or would removal? I guess it does. Your weight does put a lot behind this too. Yeah, that's.
Thank you, because I was going to see if Gene would come up.
Well, that's-
Sorry, Gene.
Sorry.
So that's one of my concerns because DEQ's got to be involved.
Yeah.
There's a road that's got to be accessed to get in there. I mean,
Yeah,
there's,
no,
there's-
I
there's
get
a
it.
lot
It
of,
takes some
there's a
time.
lot of other things that need to happen before I think they can even crush anything out there.
Yeah.
Right, and that was my main concern, sitting back, listening to you guys speak. Anytime a crushing permit's done, you have to get an air quality permit. You know, you got to get a crusher, you got to mobilize it in. My main concern is, the access they've been using, I can't find any access that they are using on that. It's actually to the north is where they're using it. The one to the south I know has been there, but they don't use that. My main concern is when you bring in a crusher, you got to get the air quality permit, you got to do all that. There's a chance that air quality could deny it.
Yeah.
Because of its proximity to residential areas. Now, personally, I've crushed in a lot of areas where I didn't think I was going to get pre-print and they gave it to you because you can prove it. Like Matt did say, there is cement, concrete dust that comes off the crusher, but the majority of the dust is from running around in that area. The other thing that's going to end up happening is when they get that air quality permit, I don't know, I don't see any stockpiles out there of topsoil and stuff like that. So there's topsoil underneath there that has vegetation and all of that kind of stuff. How do you separate that? What kind of dust does that do? And then there's always a point of reclamation. At what point do you have to do reclamation? The wind does blow in that area. Reclamation is a huge thing. You got to seed it. BLM anymore doesn't really like putting straw down. I don't know why. They don't, but I think it provides an extra little bit of cover so the dirt doesn't blow around until the seed gets established. So you have to work because of the proximity with BLM, you actually have to kind of work with them and see what they'll allow. Also, so there is some hurdles to do. Are they impossible? No. But there is some hurdles. I guess from my standpoint, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're already under violation. So it's up to you guys on what they do. I can't speak to that. That's your guys. That's why we're here. But from my standpoint, there is, I want to say significant hurdles, but there is some hurdles that have to be addressed before, we can put a timeline on anything. And then I don't know, you guys don't own a crusher, do you anymore? You guys have to rent a crusher or bring one in.
Yeah.
So I don't even know availability and stuff like that. I know they're out there. We've looked at them for some of our wrap piles and stuff like that, but usually coming up on this time of year, you got to reserve them unless they're gone. So.
Thank you, Gene. I don't know how to say this without, I don't know. I just feel like it's very blatant that had we not had complaints, we wouldn't be here today. That it would just be out there for, we don't know how long, if it be 2 years or another 20 years. So I have a hard time myself approving a variance that had we not had complaints, I don't think that we would be here today looking at this. That's my own opinion, that it would just sit out there with the other dirt piles for the next 20 years or another project in 10 years or, whenever, that way that it's needed. At this moment, it's really not needed. So I think it would have just sat there. To me, it probably should have went to the landfill. I'm sure it was bid to go to the landfill. I don't know that. It's not my bid. But that's where it should have went and not just dumped. That's how I kind of feel about it. I don't know if anybody has any other questions for Eric, the applicant, Gene. No.
Hey, Eric, question. So if they go to crush, does the county have any involvement of them doing that on residential property? I mean, that's an industrial use on a
Well, that's why we're
residential,
here.
or is
Yeah.
it just at a maintenance thing, or do we have to revisit it when they finally come out to crush?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it's going to need probably a special use permit for that type of use when it gets to that time, that they'll have to go through that process also. And what if that gets denied? One thing I want to clarify, just clarify for the record is even if this was zoned agriculture, that doesn't matter, it would not be an approved use. It's the industrial issue. I just
Yeah.
want to clarify
Mhm.
that. As far as our concern is the time frame, as Mr. Doak has stated and Mr. De Leon, we just want compliance. Staff wants it the ultimate at the decision here. We will be reasonable and we always have been concerning violations. So if this does not get approved, recommended for approval, it gets denied at the Board of County Commissioners, we will work with the applicant. And I've talked to Mr. Zimmerman about that. So we have some discretion in that, especially with weather.
Sure.
Who knows how things are going to go with the rest of the winter. We'll work with them on that so that it does get dealt with. Just keep in mind too, we've got rebar in there. We've got other stuff that, whether it's the crushing of the concrete, that needs to be disposed of in an appropriate, in the landfill. So, but yeah, that's our biggest thing. We just want to put it out there. So if this does not get approved at the board level, we will work with the applicant
So
moving forward.
I'd like to say something here. I can relate to Mr. Jackman. I mean, I realize the cost involved, but not having the permit, not having a game plan. I think that right now I think we should deny it, but I think that the applicant should come back with a proposal stating that we can have a crusher here, we can get our DEQ permit, we can get everything in a row, we can get access easement. Right now, it's all up in the air. We have nothing definite that we can say, this is what's going to happen.
I agree.
So I can't say I would vote for the variance right now because there's just too many too many ifs. What if, you know, I want Mr. Randall, I want Mr. Jackman both be happy. And like Eric said, I think we can work well with one another, but we have to have a game plan. And right now it's just, there's just too much out there.
I agree. I agree completely.
But I'm also one other thing, and then I'll shut up. But if they was to remove the material and haul it to the dump, well, then you're talking, you still need the accesses. You're still
Yeah.
going to have dust control because of the dust coming up. So you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So there has to be something we can work out.
Yeah, the access issue to me is a big deal.
I think we should table it. Revisit it next month. Let him come back with a plan. Tell us what's gonna, timelines, et cetera. All the questions we've had and all the unknowns, maybe we have more questions in the next month and we can get them out.
I have not.
And
opposed to that.
Get a good solution to this, you know, that makes everybody happy.
If we were to table it, would that be enough time to get the accesses there? Would that be enough time to know if we can get a crusher permit?
Can we postpone it, John? Then there's not the tabling. Can we postpone it?
So, again, those four options are what is explicitly identified, in the zoning resolutions.
Okay.
So, to that end, you would, by Robert's rules, need to address it at the
Next
next
month.
meeting.
Okay.
Now, you, again, and I think it's, you know, you would have the same options next month. You'd have the same
Okay.
four options in front of you.
Okay.
So it would just be something that remains on your plate, versus a postponement. You can put a little bit further down. So your option is to table, and then you could certainly have that same option if it appeared that a reasonable time frame in terms of gathering additional data
Okay.
was at
As needed.
hand.
Yeah, because I
So-
don't know if we could get all of that in a month. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't want to postpone indefinitely.
No, I don't think
Yeah,
it needs to
but-
be postponed indefinitely. No.
60 days, 90 days, 3 months, something like that.
Well, I'm with Rob. I just don't know in a month's time that you can get all of that information together to be back here. But if we can table it for next month, and if it's not, then we'll,
Then it's,
yeah, whatever. One moment. Would you like to say something, Mr. Jackman? Yes, please. Yes, no, please. That's why we're here.
jump up there.
Yes.
I'm confident in a month. You're not gonna have 100%, but you could have 75. I could have a crusher scheduled, the DEQ permit. Oh, they're about 45 days, but it could at least be in the process, right? Easements, that wouldn't be tough to work out. You know,
Okay.
the deed, whether it's filed, whether it's actually drawn up, but there could be a written agreement for whatever to show where the access is.
So you feel
Uh,
comfortable if we table it till next month?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
that'll give you at least more information. And if I need another 30 days after that, you know, I could see you maxing out there, but
Okay. That's
in a month, you can have a lot more information.
okay.
So
That's
yep.
fair. Okay, thank you. Would somebody like to make a motion to go ahead and table? This act-
No.
No.
We're good.
Okay,
Do we want to go for a table for 30 days or?
let's do it. Yeah. if you
Okay,
guys
I'll
are
make a
comfortable with
motion.
that.
I'll make a motion. We table this to the next meeting.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Just for clarification, when is the next meeting?
thank you. Good question.
February 8th. And we also have other hearings, so we're scheduled for
Yeah.
a meeting, so.
Just for, again, point of order, Madam Chair,
Okay,
I think that the motion is to table to the next meeting.
Yeah, not the 30 days.
thank you.
Table
Yes,
next
thank you.
meeting. Yeah.
Of the February 8th meeting, correct.
I'll second that.
Any final further discussion? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Nay.
What else? Motion carries. We will look at it next month. Eric, do you have anything else, or Megan, do you have anything else for us?
Megan, do you have anything?
The only thing that I have is next month we'll have 4 Met Tower construction permit applications and then 1 final plat subdivision application. So it will be a pretty full meeting.
Okay.
Just so you guys know a little bit in advance for
Thank
that.
you. I appreciate that. So I can, yeah, thank you.
And Madam Chair, those are, the reason why those are public hearings now is we have received negative comments on the Met Towers. And so normally that's administrative approval, but because of that, we have to schedule a public hearing. So the town of Superior has filed quite a few comments negative about this. And these are Met Towers are anemometers. They measure wind and they're doing a wind study. So I'll just more explaining why because you're like, we haven't heard Met Towers before, and that's why. So we'll prepare a staff report and give further explanation there. The other thing, Madam Chair, is as Mr. De Leon and I were talking today and we were going through the bylaws, we need to update our bylaws. They are seriously outdated, the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that to me is going to be a priority. There's stuff in there that's just not applicable anymore. Like as far as even job descriptions that we don't even have at the county anymore.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to pull those out and sit down with John and go through those and so we'll move forward with that, and they'll have to go to the Administrative Procedures Act and such when we do that. But yeah, because Commissioner Richards over there did bring that up about the bylaws, and I looked at them today and they are so outdated. So
Okay.
let's get those updated, get them to current situation so that they meet today's regulations. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Awesome. No, I agree. Those things get by the wayside sometimes.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to go through them either because it's no fun. No. All right. Thank you, everybody. I know had a feeling it was going to be a little longer meeting, and then next month, let's plan for a long meeting as well. So awesome. Thank you, guys. We are adjourned. It is 10:59 a.m. Thank you.
John's bringing